It's a big Bradley University Tuesday. Frank Cusimano had Charlie Steiner on earlier. I myself went to Bradley, and we have another Bradley alum to talk Cardinals and Reds. It's Bobby Nightengale, who is the Reds beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Bobby, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to have a Bradley takeover.
Absolutely. So I got to ask real quick, because I know your dad lived here for a bit. Did you ever live in St. Louis growing up?
I did not. He moved there after I started college. So I just visited a couple times, but that was it.
So how did you find your way to Bradley then?
The sports communications program that, now it's the Charlie Steiner School, but the first sports communications class, that was the first one. So just being a part of the first class is kind of what drew me there.
Very cool. All right. I want to break down this big series in Cincinnati, and I say big series, but then I'm watching the game last night, and I'm seeing the crowd, or lack thereof. And we've talked about this in St. Louis a lot with very small crowds in St. Louis. I know you have COVID out there, and Cardinal fans aren't real happy with the front office and not making big moves, especially at the trade deadline. The Reds, though, yesterday, 10,773 fans. Look, I know they're not going to normally draw like the Cardinals, and I get it. It's a Monday. It's a weekday series, but this is a big series against your rival. Were you surprised at the lack of fans at last night's game?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of excuses you could throw around, like, school just started, earlier start time than usual. They're back to 6:40 instead of 7:10. Obviously, COVID's still going, but, it's a lot lower than it has been for the past few weeks even. Even the last couple Monday games against a bad Chicago Cubs team after the trade deadline, and even against the Miami Marlins the weekend before. So I was pretty surprised at how small the crowd was. Because, like you said, I mean, I think it is a big series, and it's a division rival, and usually they get Cardinal fans here too, and I didn't see many Cardinals fans either.
So tell me about the Cincinnati Reds fan base and how they feel about the Cardinals. We always joke Yadier Molina, when he announced next year will be his final season, he said, look, I'm looking forward to being booed when I go to Cincinnati. I was at that All-Star game in Cincinnati where everybody's booing him. He points to the back of his jersey. Even Albert Pujols on the other side is booing Yadier Molina. We know what happened years ago with Brandon Phillips and Johnny Cueto, but is there that good, healthy, hateful rivalry in there in Cincinnati when they're thinking about St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with Molina. I think he's probably public enemy number one still from the Phillips incident. I've heard players over the years are like, stop booing him. I mean, it seems like he even plays better in Cincinnati than he does elsewhere just because he feeds off of it. But, I would say probably their top rival, at least in terms of the fan base's mind, just because what the Cardinals have kind of been able to do, the market size is similar. And it's just the Cardinals have been a winning team for the past decade. And, it's one of those things where the Reds have been rebuilding, and they look at themselves and they say, why can't we be what the Cardinals have been? So I definitely think that's there.
We're talking with Bobby Nightengale, Reds beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. And then what happened early in the year just adds fuel to that fire. And I'll be honest with you, I love the whole Nick Castellanos, the flex with Jake Woodford. I know Cardinal fans weren't happy about it. I think the Reds were fired up. I even saw that they kind of used that picture around the stadium outside to promote the team. So what was it like in Cincinnati when that happened? And did that just add another log to the fire between the Reds and the Cardinals rivalry?
Yeah, I think so a little bit. And part of it, too, was Molina was like right in the middle of it. I mean, he was the first one to grab Castellanos after he flexed over Woodford. And so it was like, oh, there's Molina again, and there's the Cardinals again. But, I mean, it was the second game of the season. I think Nick Castellanos was just trying to – they lost opening day, was trying to fire up his teammates. He said since then, I mean, like you mentioned, they put it on promotional stuff outside the building, had a big picture of it. But it sounds like he's always wanted to distance himself from it. And, I mean, if you look at his actions, he flexed, he shouted. But after that, he walked away. He had a calm conversation with Yadier Molina. He made a joke that if Yadier Molina would have punched him in the face, he'd still ask him for a signed jersey. So it's one of those things. He's kind of distanced himself from it, but I think the team has kind of leaned into it, just saying, okay, this is the fiery emotion that we like to show.
So, Bobby, when you look at the schedules coming up, especially here in September, if you look at the Cardinals, what the Padres have, and also the Cincinnati Reds, it seems like this is going to be the Reds' wild card race to lose. And the Cardinals had a bunch of Pirates in August. They weren't able to take advantage. The Padres weren't able to take advantage. The Padres can't win a game. and they played a bunch of Diamondbacks games, weren't able to climb the standings there. The Cardinals have a ton of Brewers in September, and it seems like it all sets up, if Cincinnati just plays a bit over 500, that this should be their second wild card to lose. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if the Reds don't make it, I think it's one of those, they only have themselves to blame. They still have 9 games left against the Pirates. They have the Tigers this weekend. I mean, they have the second easiest schedule in terms of playing sub-500 teams, except for the Phillies. So the Phillies, maybe they climb back in because of their weak schedule too, but it's one of those things, as long as they take care of business, you should win 2 out of 3 at home against the Cardinals. Then they go to St. Louis next week, maybe win 1 game there. So if you just split those games, play 500 the rest of the way, beat up on the bad teams, I mean, I think that gives them, just by, plus they're in the driver's seat right now, I mean, a big advantage. But if they don't take care of business against the Pirates and start slipping a little bit against these below 500 teams, then the doors open a lot more.
We're talking with Bobby Nightengale, the Reds beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Joey Votto having a renaissance season. He's got 28 homers. He's on base percentage 367, OPS over 900 at 916. So he's hitting like that Joey Votto that we've seen for 10 years with all the Cardinals-Reds games over the years. What's it like covering Joey Votto? Because it seems like he'd be a really fun guy to cover. I mean, he has an opinion. He's not afraid to share it. It also seems like he has a lot of fun, whether it's with fans in the stands and handing out bats and helping out the kids. We all know the story of the girl who went to the game this year to see Joey Votto, and he got ejected from the game, and she was crying. Then he goes there and gives her the autograph, and everything's great. What's it like covering Joey Votto?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the best compliment I could give is he's pretty unpredictable. And, in a daily beat, you're used to getting the same answers from a lot of guys. You're used to knowing what they're going to say, but he's one of those guys you don't know what he's going to say on a daily basis, what he's going to do. So it's good for a long season. He's able to mix it up. And this year, I mean, I don't remember seeing this power from him. He had 27 combined homers in 2018 and 2019, and he's already surpassed that. So this is new. I mean, just seeing a guy who kind of reinvent himself a little bit on the fly. Started last year after he got benched for a few games, and then he's carried it over to this season. But like you said, I mean, he's been the Reds team MVP with the way he's carried them in the second half. He slowed down a little bit of late, and the team struggled in that same stretch. But when he's going, I mean, he's as good as he was in 2017 when he almost won MVP.
So I'm sure he's talked about this. What has changed for Joey Votto the last couple of years? Is it something approach mentally? Is it something mechanically that he's made a change with?
Yeah, it's more just going back to what he was like early in his career. He said he's just kind of adopted like a rookie first couple of years in the league. He's standing up taller. He's not choking up. And he admits he's swinging for the fences sometimes. And he just wants to be a guy who does damage at the plate. For so long, in the middle of his kind of prime, he was a guy who got on base, drew a ton of walks. And he's not that guy right now. He's usually a walks leader in the National League. Now, if he sees a pitch that he likes, he's swinging at it no matter what. So to him, he said it's a lot easier on him mentally, just because he's not as locked in, maybe trying to decipher if it's a strike or ball and trying to nibble on the edges. Now it's just more, I'm swinging for the fences. I'm going to try and hit some homers. I'm trying to drive in runs, and that's been successful for him. I mean, because pitchers, I think, stopped fearing him a couple of years ago, and they just attacked him a little bit more, and now it's kind of reversing where if they keep attacking him, he can do more damage against it.
This is the Charlie Marlow Show on 590 The Fan, 590thefan.com. We're talking with Bobby Nightengale, the Reds beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. And if you go back earlier in the year, I remember it was against the Cardinals that I feel like Jonathan India really kind of established himself this season. And we know he was the 5th overall pick back in 2018, so super talented. Is it fair to say, though, that once Jonathan India came up and really started producing, that this lineup really clicked? And here's a guy who could win the National League Rookie of the Year. He really seems to be the engine at the top of that lineup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, he got moved to leadoff, I want to say, right around the time they went to St. Louis. And since he got moved to leadoff, that's been kind of a huge change for him, just in terms of the team said, hey, we need you at the top of the lineup to produce in front of Jesse Winker and Nick Castellanos, 2 all-star starters. And he got on base a lot more. At one point, I think he had like a .410 on base percentage. So, I mean, it was one of those things where I think he got a bigger jolt from the team saying, hey, we want you to do more offensively. We're going to put you at the top of the lineup. And he just took that as a boost of confidence and ran with it. But like you said, I mean, he was a top 5 pick. But he never had a great minor league season. He was solid, but not spectacular. And then he just kind of blossomed this year. And I do agree that he's probably the Rookie of the Year front runner right now. And he's done everything this offense could ask for.
And then another guy who's having a great season, who was a first-round pick, and we saw him with the Indians for several years, and he was okay. He was a good player, kind of a fourth outfielder type with Cleveland, is Tyler Naquin, who's taken this opportunity with Cincinnati now and also run with it. He's got 24 doubles. He's got 19 homers, and he's really deepened and lengthened that lineup for the Reds. What do you think kind of has clicked for Tyler Naquin after 4 or 5 years with Cleveland of not being able to put everything together? He seems like he has this year in Cincinnati.
Yeah, he'll say the number one thing is just he's healthy. And he's said that since the beginning of spring training. I remember when he came in, because he was a non-roster invitee, he had to fight for a spot. And he kept saying, hey, if I'm healthy, I'm going to do some damage this year. And he stayed healthy this year. He slumped in July, but otherwise he had an amazing start in April and May. Was definitely player of the week 2 weeks ago. Tommy Edman last week. So it's one of those things where he's been up and down in terms of hot streaks and cold streaks, but the whole year, I mean, he's been a huge lift in the outfield. Center field, they haven't really had that production in the last couple of years, especially with Nick Senzel injured. So that's been a huge lift to their outfield. I mean, Jesse Winker, a hot Tyler Naquin, and Nick Castellanos, I mean, that's as good as the outfield as the Reds could have asked for coming into the year.
Yeah, and it seems like along with India, who really got kick-started during that Cardinal series a couple months back, same with Luis Castillo, who was really, really struggling on the mound. Then he had that great outing against the Cardinals. He strikes out a ton, and he's been much better after that. So if the Reds get into a one-game wild card, if it's against the Dodgers, and I think because this may go down to the wire, teams won't be able to set up their pitching matchup necessarily unless you're the Dodgers. But would that be a tough call if they could between Luis Castillo or Sonny Gray, Miley? If they could set it up, how do you think the Reds would attack that one-game wild card?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world they'd still have Castillo as a one-game wild card type guy. I mean, he has the best stuff. Sonny Gray's been really good in the last couple starts. Wade Miley's been their best pitcher all season. But if you're just talking about one game, it's like if Luis Castillo's on and at his best, and he's done that quite a bit over the last couple months after a really, really rough start. If he's on, I mean, they have a chance to win any game against any team. So I definitely would turn to him.
We're talking with Bobby Nightengale, the Reds beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer. A couple more minutes here. So when the Cardinals win the opener, how much pressure now do you think is switched over to Cincinnati just to try to win this series, where obviously you have to win the next two? The Reds are in the driver's seat, but you're only a half game ahead of the Padres. The Cardinals are lurking here, 2.5 back. The Phillies are still in it at 3 games behind. Are the Reds starting to feel the pressure, do you think? And the fan base, do you feel like, hey, this team has to get a playoff spot this year?
Yeah, definitely think the fan base looks at it that way, especially kind of how their schedule's lined up. It's like, okay, you have the easiest schedule the last month of the season. You also have a lead over the Padres, who the Padres looked invincible at one point this summer, just the way they were going. And after their struggles, they had a nice lead over the Cardinals. The Cardinals have kind of got back into it. So I definitely think there's some pressure there. They lost 2 of 3 against the Miami Marlins coming into the series in Miami. So that one hurt. They lost 2 of 3 at home against the Chicago Cubs a couple weeks ago. So they've had their slip-ups. I think they're 10-11 in their last 21 games. So, yeah, I definitely think the pressure is there. Their offense has been a little bit tighter than usual. So, yeah, I definitely think it's there.
And, Bobby, I got to ask you about your dad, because growing up, if you stayed at any hotel, USA Today often is just kind of put there right at your hotel room. And so basically all over America, anybody could open up the newspaper and see your dad as the baseball writer. What was that like growing up, and then obviously following in his footsteps in the same career path?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of something like always saw him doing it, thought it would be cool to do it myself. When I went to Bradley, that wasn't even I was hoping to be a broadcaster or work in TV production. Wasn't even planning to go into writing, but kind of drew me back in as my college career came to an end. And it's been fun. I mean, I've read them basically my entire life. Baseball Weekly was an avid reader of that when it came to the doorstep. So it's been fun seeing him, especially working in the same press boxes when we do get a chance to do that.
Very cool. So final question. I'm actually from Ohio. I'm from Toledo, so way up north there where the end of my street is the state of Michigan. So it's a good 3 hours from Cincinnati. But all my travels to Cincinnati, I've actually never still tried Skyline chili. So you can be honest. Do you actually like it, or do you have to say that you like it?
Actually, I do like the chili. Everyone here likes the conies, but I'm not a big fan of that. But I will eat the chili. Not every day, but once every couple weeks or so.
Love it. All right, Bobby, thanks for your time. A fellow Bradley University alum. Always great to talk to a fellow Brave. Thanks for coming on. You're welcome anytime, and enjoy the rest of this Cardinals-Reds series.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Thanks for having me. All
right, that's Bobby Nightengale, the Reds beat writer with the Cincinnati Enquirer, joining us here on the Charlie Marlow Show on 590 The Fan, 590thefan.com, broadcasting live from the GFI Digital Studios. Also, Jim Hewer.
Yes.
Good conversation there with Bobby Nightengale. It is nice to have the Reds as a big rival, and I'm not saying they ever went away, but the Cardinals will always have the Cubs. That's just your traditional rivalry. Mm-hmm. Even if the teams aren't that great, where the Cardinals usually are. Many of these years, the Cubs, they're okay sometimes, not so much, but that's the traditional rivalry. The last 5 years or so, and hell, you could even go back to 2011, the Brewers, Pirates, okay, once every 10 years, they're good. But there's a little added spice. Because of Yachty, you can go back to Brandon Phillips and Johnny Cueto, Nick Castellanos added to it. It's just a little more spicy when the Cards and Reds are playing meaningful games here, end of August, in September. It makes it more fun in the NL Central.
Anything that's meaningful is much more exciting right now. And I kind of looking forward to what's going to happen the next two nights. Look, these two teams are neck and neck. And if you've been around for a while, you value these as a fan because you go, oh, this means something. It's not, you're not playing, like we said, the Pirates. You're not playing Arizona where you go, oh, let's hope we win and see what the other team does, whoever they're playing. This is head to head. Last night was a nice ball game, by the way. I mean, it was a pretty well played game, well pitched. A couple of good things the Cardinals did last night helped them win a game. Great base running by Dylan Carlson, taking the base on that ground out the third. Helped lead to that extra run. You saw a great barehanded play by Sosa at shortstop. Those are the kinds of things when you get a good, crisp played ball game that make a difference, and it's just cool as a baseball fan to take it all in.
2 hours, 47 minutes, nice ball game, pretty clean. And Paul Goldschmidt also. Paul Goldschmidt.
There's another one.
We've brought him up this year where he wasn't performing the first couple months. He has been really, really good here the last 2 months. I'm bringing up his splits right now. So the last month, basically, last 28 days for Paul Goldschmidt, OPS over 1,000, average 354, on base 411, slugging 616 for an OPS of 1,027, and you just go by month here. Look, he wasn't good early. He batted 214 through April. Okay, but he's gotten better every month. He had a really slow start in May, and if you're just looking at batting average, upped it to 265, June 281, July red hot 323, and August just keeping it going here, batting 350. So he's been really good actually the last 3 months. The first 2 months were not your typical Paul Goldschmidt. In April, we're talking an OPS below 600 of 597, but after a really bad April, in May, OPS 772, June 839, July 959, and in August over 1,000, 1,004. So, look, we complained early. You have to have your big contracts producing that way. Nolan Arenado has been pretty solid all year long. Defensively, of course. Offensively, I understand if you wanted an OPS closer to 900, you knew his numbers were going to come down a bit coming over from Colorado. But he's been around at 800 OPS. He's been pretty consistent. Paul Goldschmidt has been unbelievable the last 2 to 3 months, and he's a big-time difference maker.
Talked about your contract's got to pay off. Mm-hmm. They paid off last night. I mean, he set the tone right away. Bang, 2-0. before the Reds even get the bat. And he darn near hit another one the opposite field, too, that pinned the the right fielder up against the wall out there. I mean, he's as locked in, I think, as we've seen him as a Cardinal. He had a real good stretch in the second half a couple of years ago, his first season. He's right there right now, and there's a pennant race going on. And he says, all right, I'm here. Here I am. Take notice. We're going to win a couple ball games because of me.
And this also could be a product of just, look, it took him a couple months to get going. But when you look at how he's hit batting second, he really thrives, or has this year batting second. Hitting second this year, his OPS is 887. Now, for the most part, when he's hitting third, it's not like he's bad, but an OPS of 757. When he's hitting second, and I like Mike Schilt actually separating Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, especially if you can have a switch hitter like Dylan Carlson. You can play some matchups there, so it's not just right-handed all the way through. And, of course, with Tommy Edman at the top, you have another switch hitter in those scenarios. But Paul Goldschmidt is living up to that contract, absolutely.
See what he does tonight. Look, he's so solid in all phases. Now, he's not the flashy guy. I think sometimes he gets lost in that for some Cardinal fans. They want, well, how come we don't have a Tatis or we don't have a Vlad Jr.? Well, no, you don't have that. But you got a couple pretty good guys on the bookends in the infield. And goalie right now is playing as good as anybody in the game.
Just baseball players, just gamers there. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado.